The government have passed a raft of legislation that seriously threatens democracy and has wide-reaching consequences for our society. Their policing bill clamps down on the right to protest and further criminalises and persecutes Gypsy, Roma and traveller communities. The police now have the power to stop any protests that are deemed to have a serious impact on people in the vicinity or cause a serious annoyance, including being too noisy. Now, these are vague terms. It's not specifically laid out what they mean. And organisers of protests that continue after the police have deemed them illegal can face 51 weeks in prison. Anyone who blocks a highway can face 51 weeks in prison. Now, essentially, protest works because it disrupts, it makes a noise, it gets in your face. If protests are only legal when they don't make a noise, they aren't visible, then there's no point, no one will pay attention. So it's essentially saying only pointless protests will be legal.
The Nationality and Borders Bill is a sweeping bill that actually covers something like 6 million people in this country. It effectively turns them into second-class citizens because should any of those citizens want to raise their voice, demand justice or fairness in society, they could be made stateless if this government chooses.
We know from the Windrush scandal that this is not a fantasy, this is not something that sort of won't happen. We've seen people taken from the only country they've ever known and sort of dumped in a country where they have no connections, no family, no job.
You only need to have had one parent or one grandparent born abroad for it to impact a person who chooses to stand up against this government. And the sad reality is if you're made stateless because you've stood up against a government, then what other country is going to have you? Having said all of that, there's 6 million of us. If 6 million people got together against this government, we can change this bill tomorrow. So it's everything for us to be working on in terms of building our community, building that resilience and getting that cooperation and understanding and to be out fearlessly, just as our ancestors did.
The elections bill would make a Conservative government getting into power a lot more likely. It imposes a requirement for voter ID, and the sort of more oppressed, marginalised people are less likely to have their paperwork in place, basically, and the kind of people who vote Conservative are much more likely to have their paperwork in place. So it's hugely undemocratic, especially as fraud has been proven to be a non-issue. It's barely happened in recent years at all.
The pattern is that those with the most power and the most wealth in this country, and that be the government and corporations, will get to work with each other and decide what the everyday person is or isn't allowed to have and at what price. And then the NHS bill, this accelerates the privatisation and it will become law to privatise the NHS. Up until now, the NHS has been attacked, but because we've had the law to protect it, they haven't been able to really sell it off into private hands as quickly as they would have liked. But now this is within the framework of law, so it means those that would want to object are going to be facing a court system that will overrule them.
It's no coincidence that all these bills are coming through now. The government have an 80-seat majority. They've been able to push them through. But they're also a sign of the times.
We are not in a cost of living crisis. The crisis that we're in is a wealth distribution crisis. What we have is governments and corporations and the 1% taking out of the public purse for their greedy mates and for their own self-serving needs and leaving the public purse poor.
This is deliberate. It's the result of government policy. It's not an accident or something that's happened naturally. And people are going to get restless and they're going to want to resist and stand up for their rights. We've got a climate crisis and protest has been proved to be one of the few things that actually drives change on the climate crisis.
The dilemma now is for society to go, do we accept that the 1% are ruling us and that they decide how we can walk, how we can speak? Or are we all going to get together and go, not in our name?
You can still protest. That's absolutely fine, just not while blocking the highway.
Every freedom we have has been fought for and won. So we cannot, at this point, sit back and feel miserable and commiserate. We need to step up and organise. In our numbers, we will be stronger than these bills, than this government and all this legislation. We need to mobilise, organise together because there is power in numbers, there's power in the people coming together.
They can only enforce this if those that are supposed to enforce it do that work. And we have to now ask the question of the police force, who do they protect and who do they serve? And we have to remind them that it's us, not the 1%, not the people with power. They are there to serve the general public.
As Frederick Douglass said, power concedes nothing without a demand.